Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. My name is Anna. I am a cybersecurity student from Manchester Met, and as has been said, I'm going to talk today about the accessibility challenges within cybersecurity, more specifically, password policies. As a disclaimer, this is not the only accessibility issue in cybersecurity. There are many. This is the one that I chose to focus on for this talk, but maybe I'll do some others in the future. And I'm going to talk about why I have decided to do this before going on to the what. I do promise it does link. So there is a lot of people that are disabled, and it doesn't get talked about. I am myself disabled as well. And there isn't many people that get the opportunity to actually talk about it. And I think the more that we talk about it, the more good that we can do. So that is why I'm doing this today. Just want to help people. So what is the actual issue that we're facing? Well, the world is a great place and there's a lot of technological advancements. However, it severely lacks accessible technology. We are putting funding all into the good new shiny things and not actually in the function of how those shiny things work, making things very frustrating for disabled people. Now, why is it an issue? I assume we all know why, but if that number up there doesn't scare you, I know it scares me. 24% of the population in the UK are disabled. That is only reported statistics, and as we know, it is so hard to get a diagnosis and for that actually to go through. So in reality, that is a much higher percentage. Why is this an issue? Well, if you're not being accessible, you risk the lower employment rates, which we have seen. It's in all the statistics. Disabled people do have lower employment rates, and that is because of the accessibility challenges that we face. One of them being passwords, which links to account access. You know, everything nowadays requires an account. Even logging into Indeed requires an account. So if you even want to get a job, you need an account. And, well, unfortunately, those aren't accessible to most people. And, well, if we are not being accessible, we are excluding 24% of the population from getting a job, which, to be honest, terrifies me, and I'm sure it terrifies you too. So as a little example, I have my wonderful password that I created, I think, in November of last year. I still haven't remembered it. It has been, almost nearly a year? Still couldn't tell you what the password is, how to include it, no clue. But it is a strong password. Like, employers will say that that is the perfect password, use it everywhere. Well, don't reuse passwords though, but use it. And they don't actually take into account how inaccessible this actually is. I mean, for starters, it's too complex. Anyone even trying to type that out, if you have any sort of mobility issues, well, you're just going to give up by the second letter, I think. It's too hard to remember. As I said, I don't have any cognitive disabilities, but still haven't remembered what this is. And it's also way too hard for assistive technology to help. If you rely on text-to-speech, imagine saying that. You're going to have such a hard time. It's not going to be fun for anyone involved. So I'm going to talk about some of the main accessibility challenges. As I just said, assistive technologies. It's usually the main thing that people go to, being like, just use assistive technology. It's great when it works. And the unfortunate part is it doesn't work majority of the time because it lacks research and it lacks funding and people aren't pushing it forwards as much as they should be. The main thing with assistive technology is UIs. If they aren't compatible with the assistive technology that's trying to use it, you're not going to be able to read what's on the screen. I mean, imagine having visibility issues and you've all of a sudden gone onto the password creation screen and you can't actually read what it says. So you're not actually going to be able to make a password in the first place to access your account. Then we have the fact that there is a lack of clear security policies and also just a lack of accessible knowledge in general. We've all seen it. We've all got frustrated when you go on, you try and log into a new shiny social media, and it has like 10 different rules that you need to abide by when their security policy because of passwords, because they think that's more secure. It's not. It just creates frustration. And especially for people that are disabled. I mean, if you already struggle to type in a password, having to type in one that, one, is secure, two, abides by all the rules that you need to, you might as well just give up. You're not going to have a fun time. And then the accessible knowledge. If people don't know how to be secure, how do we expect them to be secure? And the problem is the knowledge isn't accessible. It's not written in an accessible format. It's not written accessibly. And there's just so many issues around just the actual knowledge of it all, which makes it a lot harder for people to be secure, which leads to disabled people becoming more vulnerable targets. And then we have complex authentication methods. There are ones that are better than others, but no authentication method is 100% accessible. I'm going to talk about some of them now. So, one of the main ones that people love to do is password expiry. I hate this with a passion. Loathe it. Every 6 months they expect you to change your password. What ends up happening, as I'm sure we all know, is you just add a 1 on the end. You add a 1, you call it a day. It's not really secure, but people love to do it anyways. For people who are disabled, this is even worse because imagine you have a cognitive issue. You forget that you've added an extra 1. You can't remember that you've added an extra character. What are you going to do? You have to call up the IT department. You have to be like, hey, can you please reset my password? So more resets on top of resets. No one is having a fun time, especially the poor IT man who has to handle 100 requests a day. We then have multi-factor authentication and biometric authentication. Now, while this is one of the better methods, it's one of the most accessible methods that we have currently, it's still not 100% accessible. You usually require a different device to even be able to do it. 2, if you have, again, any cognitive issues and you see a pin, I don't have any issues, but sometimes I see the pin and it completely wipes out my mind. I have no clue what that pin is. It's just timed out. I now need to go through the whole process again of inputting the password to input the pin to access my university account. Then we have the fact that sometimes you need to use biometric login with multi-factor authentication. If you struggle with any kind of mobility issues, my phone works on a good day, works like maybe 30% of the time with my fingerprint. Usually I just use the PIN because it's a headache. Now imagine only having biometric authentication and you need to do it and you have a tremor in your hand. I'd give up, to be honest. And then we also have knowledge-based authentication. Now, this one is going out of practice, thankfully. It's not secure anyways. But one of the main issues that we face is that it's still used. And it's also one of the methods that is quite case-sensitive. So you remember your first pet's name, but you don't remember that you put a capital in front of it. All of a sudden, you're locked out of your account. You can't get back in it. You don't know why. You need to password reset. Again, resets on top of resets. It's not fun for anyone involved. So what can we actually do about it? Because whenever I talk about this, I like to provide solutions and not just, everything's bad. So one of the easiest things that we can do is clear and accessible language. If you are writing your policies in a way that a 10-year-old can understand it, you're doing great. You need to simplify it down so that everyone can understand it. And that's the best way that we're going to get people more secure, because then if they actually understand the knowledge that they're given, they're actually going to use it. Then we have compromise-based policies. Please stop using password expiration policies. Please. Compromise-based policies are just better. If you know that a password has been compromised, then change it, then reset it, then you can put it on your banned password list so that person can't reuse it because you know they'll want to. And it's just better for everyone because it leads to less calls to the IT department. It also leads to people being less frustrated that their password is getting reset so often. We then have a password manager. Now, I think this is coming more into force the more that we talk about it. One of the great upsides of password managers is they stop you from reusing passwords. I mean, I've done it. So many people have so many different accounts. You're not going to be able to have a unique password for every single account. And again, as security professionals, we care more about our own security than the average person. They do not care. If they could, they would get away with putting password 123 into every account that they see. So having a password manager gives you that really complex password that everyone seems to love. And it makes it more accessible because you don't actually need to remember it. You just click the little save button, and then every time it pops up, it's like, oh, can you please authenticate it? And you already have MFA anyway, so you can do a little biometrics or a little PIN, and then it's done. You can access your account. It's a lot easier for everyone. Obviously, it's still not 100% accessible, but again, no current methods are. Then we have voice authentication. This was one of the things mentioned in a study called, As Usual, I Needed the Assistance of a Seen Person. I have cited it there. And people were interviewed, disabled people were interviewed, and the number one request that they asked for was for there to be more voice authentication. Obviously, there is not enough research around it or enough funding. However, I do think it is a possible consideration for the future, and I think companies should at least consider some type of voice authentication, especially because it will just be so useful in public spaces. If someone requires text-to-speech, you don't want to be saying it out loud. But if you can be voice authenticated, you can just be having a normal conversation, and all of a sudden you're in your account. No one has to know. Then, instead of having that massively complicated password, we can use something like Dogtree Lemon 1. Now, this is what is coming more into practice now. I think it's the most secure way to do passwords if you are going to do them. And it's just basically a passphrase. Just have 3 words that are not linked to each other whatsoever, and have like a random number or special character in the end just to fulfill that security policy, because they love to add in a special character or a number. And yeah, just put it in. It will work. It will still be as secure as a really complex password, but it's so much more usable. People can actually remember it. They don't need to reset their password. They don't need to ask you to reset their password for them, because they're just going to remember it. And then, the final one, which is probably my most controversial take, and it's storing passwords physically. Now, what I mean by this is write them down. Now, I know, we've all been told don't do it. However, if we think about it, the pros and cons of it, I mean, the pros is you don't have to reset your password. You have them all written down, you know what they are. The cons is, obviously, someone can take your little book and they find all your passwords. However, what are the chances that someone's going to break into your house, find that nice plain notebook that looks nothing like a password manager notebook, steal it, and then actually know how to be able to use it? The likelihood is very low, so I think the risk or the benefit outweighs the risk in this scenario, especially for people who are disabled. And it also helps if people need the assistance of someone else. Obviously, people who are disabled want to be independent, but sometimes it is required to have someone else's assistance. If someone else has access to all your passwords, it makes it a lot easier with communication with them. So, in conclusion, nothing is as secure as we think it is. In fact, you don't want anything to be 100% secure, because then you can't actually use it. It's one of the main principles in the CIA triad, which is if a system is 100% confidential, it is 0% accessible, you might as well not make it. So that is why I think that we need to focus more on the actual usability, rather than how confidential, how secure things are. Especially because, most things aren't like, the government's top secret things that they need to keep hidden. You don't need to be that secure when all you are is a social media website. You then have communication. I think this one is really important. Accessibility is not a one-size-fits-all. All the things that I have recommended may not be the best thing for one company. It may not be the best thing for another, but it may work for someone else. And I say this because every disabled person is different, which means that every solution has to be different. You have to speak to people. You have to ask them, what do you actually think works for you? Like the voice authentication, I never thought of that for me. But clearly, it's something that other people want, and it's something that's accessible for them. So if we actually speak to other people, we might get somewhere that's a little bit more accessible and that helps a little bit more people. And then just in general, I mean, I'm sure everyone here is, but just be mindful. This affects, again, 24% of the population, probably much higher. Do you really want a quarter of your customers or a quarter of people to feel ostracized and excluded from something? I mean, I wouldn't. That's why I'm talking about it. And obviously it does affect them, because we did see like there is lower employment rates because of this. So we really need to be mindful about how we create things. Don't focus on the shiny new design. Maybe focus if it's accessible and if it's actually usable and functional. That would be a lot better. So, thank you so much everyone for listening. There is my LinkedIn if you want to connect. My email is also there if you remember something after the conference. You know, they're like, oh, I want to ask Anna. I will respond, I promise. But thank you so much for listening, and if there's any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Thank you very much, Anna. That was really interesting.
Thank you.
Any questions? Oh, go on there near the back.
Hi, Anna. I'm actually responsible for writing policies, like password policies, where I work, and we have to implement the payment card industry data security standard, right? Probably the most commonly implemented security framework in place in the UK. And its current version still mandates a 90-day password expiry. Now, admittedly, it mandates it for certain secure areas of the business.
Yeah.
But because of accessibility, or so I thought, we made a conscious decision at work to implement one password policy for all of our environments, and one that was sufficiently plain text, plain English, understood, that not all our employees speak English as their language, but also because we wanted to be able to say we have one unified policy that covers all our systems. Now, listening to you speak, what I've done is inadvertently all of our systems now have a 90-day password expiry because this very important security framework mandates. So in your opinion, am I better off creating multiple policies for different systems and expecting our users to know which policy is enforced depending on where they are in the network? Or am I better off maintaining a password expiry?
That is a really good question. I think, obviously I am just a student, so I don't know the ins and outs of the corporate world just yet. But I think it would be better to have different policies for different security levels, if that makes sense. Just because a service desk user wouldn't need to have their password expire every 90 days, but someone who has complete access to all the documentation probably does. So in that case, I would create different policies for different levels, but I would make sure that each level is aware of which policy applies to them, and make sure that you don't have to like give them the whole policy. You can just be like, here's a nice little PowerPoint that has all the bullet points of the main things, so that at least everyone understands the bare bones of it, just so it's a lot more accessible. And then obviously, again, speaking to people, if those people in the higher levels are having a real issue with the fact that their password expires every 90 days, I would probably review it and look into that.
Okay, so the next question, and just to follow up, is are passkeys solving this problem? Is the answer actually better as a implementation of passkeys from the
Probably is my answer. Obviously it depends on what exactly you do, but I think passkeys are probably the best solution in that case, just because password expiry is so insecure just in general. Just because, obviously, unless you have something that enforces that they completely change the password, what people will usually do is just add like a 123 or an exclamation mark at the end. And that's very easy to guess as well, because if it's already been compromised on the main one, all the brute force attackers need to do is just add a dictionary that goes through all the other letters and keys on your keyboard. Just add it onto that. Then they can be like, oh, this is their new one. So I think passkeys are better. I think it also depends.
Resourcing is one of those things, isn't it?
Yeah.
Please don't ever say just a student. You're the teacher.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions, anyone?
One thing, I've been at Google 5 years, never had to change my password once. They do believe in accessibility. But as to writing down passwords, this is a weird thing I did a long time ago, because I journal. And I have one page in my journal that is this big, long, full page of thing. And then I have this little template that I lay over it, and there's all my various words combined that make up my various passwords. But they're kept separate, so if somebody takes my journal, oh well, they'll never figure it out.
That's such a creative idea that I hadn't thought of. But that is really creative, yeah.
I wanted to say like every fourth word. No, that won't work, because then I'm going to struggle writing it and people will figure it out. But if I write the words and fit them into the sentences, and then, okay, now just make a template that I lay over. Oh, okay, now, yeah.
Now you can see it, and it's so much easier as well, because we all have like tens of different accounts that we need to keep track of.
Yeah.
We don't want to reuse passwords, but sometimes that's just the easier thing to do because you don't want to remember 10 passwords. So having it written down somewhere, again, like the benefit outweighs the risk. Like what is the chance that someone is going to come into your house, steal your journal?
And if I die,
and make sure that it's like decode it as well.
no, when I die, I want the people that are executors to my will and all this, they know about this and they can come in and figure out how to get in all my accounts. And it follows your rule, the words, which I love. Although I think you had related, because you had dog and tree.
Not a pattern.
Well, different enough.
And a lemon in a tree.
That is also true. It's maybe not the best example, but
it's
still works.
That's different from what people think. What kind of password can I use?
Oh, definitely. I use the passphrases for all my accounts now because it's just so much easier to remember a 3 string of words than it is to remember the massive strings of like special characters and numbers and stuff like that. So, because before, I'll be honest, my passwords were really bad. It was one word, 1, 2 with an exclamation mark. That's it. And it's not secure because as soon as the one word and the 1, 2 gets compromised, you're done.
I kept telling my upstairs neighbor, change your damn Wi-Fi password. She added one, but then 3 months later she added another one, and then she added another one. Now it's got 18 ones after it.
And it doesn't help because it just makes it more insecure. Like if attackers know that this is the common thing that people do, they will just keep adding ones until something hits, and then they'll be like, oh, that's the correct one. So that's why I think it should be compromised. And then also implementing a banned password list, just so people don't try to reuse the same one, and then also just put a 1 after that.
I tend to using the words wherever I'm rubbish at random. Random just doesn't work. But if I'm sat, buddy, I need to have a password. Okay, what's over there? What's over there? What's behind me? I'm sat in a space. Nobody's going to know. I've got a green unicorn, a purple frog, is where I was when I created the account. Literally, I can see something new, there's something new.
Yeah.
No, I was looking at Anna and I came up with a new password: speaker window curtain.
And a lot of people use that because it ties your account to a physical location as well. And it's been proven that if you tie things to locations, it helps memorization as well.
In a past life, I used to deal with victims of identity theft, and I used to set the passwords for them. So, because they were always concerned that someone would try and up and impersonate them, so I would pick objects in the room. I was sitting in the office floor and give that as the password, that person, because I knew it would have to be only that person who could ever possibly know it, and I wouldn't be able to be compromised by someone being able to guess. Oh, I know what street they lived on when they grew up and things like that. And again, a question for myself is when we're talking about the voice authentication. Obviously, we've got the addition of AI and being able to use there. Is there a concern you've got for the misuse of AI to be used to compromise the voice authentication?
With that one, yes. If I go back, the study was done in 2023, so AI wasn't as popular back then. I do think because obviously we now have the deepfakes and everything, I think it's a lot more concerning for the people that are higher up. Because if you're higher up, you're more likely to be known, you're more likely to have things on the internet with your voice on it. For your normal day-to-day customer, probably the the benefit outweighs the risk in that regard, but I think if it was something to be implemented and actually properly researched, I think that for the people higher up, probably not, wouldn't try, but at least for the baseline customers, baseline employees, it's worth having a go and seeing will it work.
We have another question.
Just on that comment about the voice, I heard something pretty interesting, like spam orders. I agree with this. So you got to be careful of that.
Yes.
It's like Mission Impossible type stuff. It's actually coming to fruition. But yeah, it's a simple call, like, hey, use this, or even the big stores can say, I'm so there, then you start talking to some random person.
That is why whenever I get a scam call, because I am paranoid about that, I always wait for them. Two, I always make sure that I never say yes or no during it, so that at least they don't have that snippet of me saying yes or no. Because if someone calls up and is there hey, can I access so-and-so's account? Can you please authenticate it with your voice? They have the yes snippet, so they can just say yes. So if there is a scam call, I personally try to avoid yes and no. And normally it's oh, I heard you're with Virgin Media, and I'm there I'm actually with 3. And then they usually just hang up after that.
One of the things is, I think with the whole voice authentication thing, I don't think people start to realise that is, if you're talking to somebody and you're over SIP signaling and real-time streaming protocol, the ability to capture that even at the other end, the spam caller calling you, with Wireshark as packet captures, you can easily strip the voice content out.
Yeah.
And there's many tools on the internet now where you can sort of duplicate people saying whatever they like with just very short snippets of their spoken voice.
It is definitely
I think voice authentication is going to be one of those risky areas.
It's definitely going to be a risk area. If it gets researched and funded properly, I think it might not be risky. However, we do know that it probably won't be researched and funded properly. Given just out of a hunch. So it is definitely something that we have to be aware of. But obviously, if it's the only way that someone can get into their accounts, it's the only way that they can get into their account. And I don't think there's any two ways about it.
Well, thank you very much, Anna. And
thank you.